Today we're making a popular Thai street food dish and it is called Moo Ping. So Moo Ping essentially are just grilled pork skewers. You can eat them on their own or with some sticky rice and papaya salad. Yummy, flavorful skewer. I'm gonna show you two different ways to cook it over direct heat and indirect heat, and then we're gonna do a taste test to see which one turns out better. Let's get started. So for the meat, I am using a sliced pork shoulder. It does have the bone in it, but since the pieces are sliced, it does make it a little bit easier to cut around the bone. If you're using a whole pork butt or pork shoulder, it might be a little more time consuming to cut the pork out. So I'm just slicing against the bone, and then the key part here is you want to slice long pieces with the grain and then shorter pieces against the grain. So this way, when you skewer it and eat it, the pork is more tender. So that way you are not eating a long piece of pork and it's tough. So here I'm slicing against the grain, but I'm doing a long piece. So that way you can either skewer 2 long pieces or 4 smaller pieces. I do think it turns out better when it's smaller. But again, it's just going to be a little bit more time to skewer all of the moo pings. So once all of your pork is done, I'm marinating it in some oil and salt. Make sure you use a neutral oil. I'm doing avocado oil and it's 1/3 cup, and just go in there and kind of get everything mixed around with your hands. So let that sit, and then I'm making the marinade. So I'm just using the stems of the cilantro. You can save the leaves for another recipe. And I'm just rough chopping them. I'm going to be using a mortar and pestle to make the sauce. If you don't have one, then you want to finely chop these with your knife or use like a food chopper or food processor. So this is palm sugar. You can find this at most Asian grocery stores. I'll also link it online. It's a pretty hard disc, so I'm just shaving it to make it dissolve a little bit easier. But I ended up using 1.5 full discs for this recipe. So the palm sugar is ground up. Like I said, I'm using my mortar and pestle. I have my garlic cloves. I'm using about 10 garlic cloves along with the cilantro stems, and I'm just gonna pound it until a paste forms. So ideally this is the consistency you want. Like I said, you can finely chop everything with a knife. Now I'm going to add the palm sugar, and then for the recipe I'm using 1 cup of club soda. I'm just adding a little bit of that club soda just so I can get the sugar dissolved. Keep pounding that until the sugar is incorporated, and this is what you get. I added a little bit more water to the mortar so I can get everything out of there. So now I'm going to add some Golden Mountain soy sauce. This is 1/4 cup. Some dark sweet soy sauce. I got a spoon to make sure I got everything. Some ground black pepper and white pepper. And then just go ahead and whisk that until everything is combined. Get your sliced pork shoulder. Add the marinade. It's helpful if you have gloves because this sauce is pretty pungent. And then I'm adding the remaining of the club soda or sparkling water. Go ahead and give that a mix. And then now I'm also going to add some coconut milk. This is the ROID brand. I'm using 8 ounces. I'll link this online, but this is really convenient. It's an 8.5 fluid ounce pack. Give that a good mix, and then I'm letting this marinate overnight. You want to make sure you do it for at least a couple hours just so the flavors can get into the pork. So we're going to be grilling this, so make sure you soak your bamboo skewers in water for at least 30 minutes. And again, this is the pork that we marinated. This was overnight, so you can see it just kind of absorbed nicely all of that delicious marinade. So when you're skewering it, you want to, I did about 4 pieces per a skewer. You want to get them in as tightly so that way it doesn't dry out too much when it cooks. But if you're doing longer pieces, you might do 2 or 3, but the smaller pieces, I was able to get 4 or 5. So this process does take some time, so just keep skewering all of the pork skewers. I believe I was able to get 25 skewers with 4 pounds of meat. So here's another angle that you can see how I'm skewering the pork. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as you get everything on there. And I am just finishing up here. All right, so everything's done.
Very important, do not throw that marinade away. I am saving it because we want to baste the skewers. So let's go to the grill. So like I said, we're doing two different methods. This method right here is indirect heat. There is a stone on the bottom, so there's no direct flame. So these ones, we're gonna set them on the grill and then just let them cool or cook for at least 15 minutes, and then we'll baste them. This right here is the direct version, so you can see there is an open flame, and we're just going to put them directly on there. These, you need to kind of look more closely. Once they start developing some color, go ahead and flip them over and then baste them with the leftover marinade. So I did it once on one side and then flipped them over and basted the other side. Once the pork is fully cooked, you can go ahead and remove the Moo Ping. All right, these are the indirect skewers. Like I said, we let them cook for about 15 minutes, and now we're going to go ahead and baste them. Same thing, baste it, flip it over, let it cook for another 15 minutes, baste it again. So these took anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes over indirect heat. You can see some parts of the grill are a little bit hotter than others, but it still turned out delicious, and you want to make sure they cook all the way and then remove it once they're done.
All right, the Moo Ping smells absolutely amazing. So this was the direct heat and this is the indirect heat. So I'm gonna try the direct one first. Marinade is so good. You get the sweetness from the sugar and the coconut milk and the soy sauce. Delicious. All right, so these were cooked over the indirect method. I think the indirect method might be a little bit more tender. Try one more piece. I mean, they're still both delicious. If you prefer the char marks, then do the direct heat. The indirect method does taste a little bit more tender, but you kind of get a little bit more flavor from the burn marks. So really, it's whichever your preference is. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my video for Thai sticky rice and Thai papaya salad, which go amazing with Moo Ping. All right, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye.